What's up, everyone? It's Jasmine. On today's episode of the Slain Project, I'm going to be talking about missing Indigenous people from Saskatchewan. And all of these cases are a little bit older. They're either from the 70s, 80s, or 90s. And before I get started, I just want to thank the Facebook page Saskatchewan's Missing Women and Men. They were a great source while researching these cases. And I do plan on doing about 2 or 3 more videos on Saskatchewan. They just have some stories that I just absolutely have to tell you. And if you would like to see more videos on missing and murdered Indigenous people, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Now let's get right into it. Anthony Whitehead. There is not very much information on Anthony. It is believed he attended a graduation party in Punitchi on June 1st, 1990, and was last seen in the early morning hours of June 2nd, 1990. He was 18 years old at the time he disappeared and was missing a front tooth. He is 5 feet 10 inches tall and about 140 pounds. Norman Lewison. Norman was 15 years old and lived on the Kakwistwa First Nation, which is nestled along 3 other reserves about 165 kilometers east of Regina. On Wednesday, November 16, 1977, he left his home with 2 other friends on horseback. He told his mom he was staying the night at his friend's and that they were going to play cards and that he would catch the school bus in the morning. Instead, it is believed that they attended a party on the neighboring Kawisas First Nation. The friends he was with said they were walking back towards Norman's house around 2 a.m. on the 17th. They came upon a cluster of trees and for some reason they split up to go around them and were supposed to meet up on the other side. But Norman never showed up and has never been seen since that night. Norman did not show up for school the next day, and family just thought he took the day off or possibly went to Regina. His family reported him missing the following Monday on November 21st, 1977. The next day, the RCMP, several friends, family, and volunteers searched for him. There was about 100 people in total. They searched by air and ground. They walked the route he was known to use. All they ever found was his comb along a hillside. There have been numerous tips and rumors throughout the years. 2 abandoned wells were also searched because of this, but nothing was found. His family does not believe he ran away. They think it is most likely he was murdered. RCMP thinks it's possible that he could have wandered off intoxicated and perished during the cold fall night. A skull was found in May 2011, but was identified as being historical and dating back from 50 to 100 years. A sickness plagued the area in the early 1900s, and oral history says they were buried near where the skull was found. Norman's friends and the people at the party were interviewed. His friend who last seen him alive was given a polygraph and passed. Take that info as you will, but lie detectors are known to have flaws. Norman was 5 feet 5 inches tall and about 140 pounds. He also was pigeon-toed. He was last known to be wearing blue jeans and a brown winter jacket. Barry Rocky Fiddler. Barry went by the name Rocky and was 14 years old when he went missing in February of 1975. He lived on the Waterhen Lake First Nation, which is near Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. People who knew Rocky described him as being a quiet person on online posts about him. Digital newspaper archives say that he was reported missing by his family when he failed to return home. Searches were conducted for him with no results. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall and about 140 pounds when he went missing. He was wearing blue jeans, brown boots, and a brown wool checkered jacket. Kevin Charles and Mary Goodfellow. Kevin was 16 and living with his adopted grandma, Mary, in Chaitik Lake. Mary was 67 years old and wore a hearing aid. She also was the unofficial pawnbroker in town. At about 5 a.m. on Saturday, April 3rd, 1993, two men showed up in a truck, forced themselves into Mary's home, and threatened Kevin. The men said that Kevin had stolen from them. Kevin and Mary were able to escape and went across the street to try to get help. Kevin banged on the neighbor's door and was screaming for help. The people in the house did not answer because they thought it was just drunk people at the door. At about 9:15 a.m., Mary was seen walking with a young man on some railroad tracks about 7 kilometers north of Chitek Lake. It is unknown if the person was Kevin. I do wonder if the sighting of Mary walking along the tracks was confirmed. 7 kilometers is a long way for an old lady to walk. I think it would make more sense if the men in the truck abducted them after Kevin was at the house asking for help. Extensive air and ground searches with the aid of dogs were conducted in a 20-kilometer radius. No trace was ever found of either of these two. Ernestine Cassian. Ernestine's cousin Mary Cassian says that she was a happy and nice person who took care of herself and dressed well. She was a member of the Black Lake First Nation and lived in Stony Rapids before moving to Prince Albert. Mary stated that Ernestine was living with a lawyer in the city and was recently divorced. She said her cousin was going through a difficult time in her life and may have turned to drugs and alcohol to cope. Mary is unsure if the lawyer was questioned about Ernestine's disappearance. All sources say that she left a residence to use a payphone in the 100 block of 10th Street East in Prince Albert on December 6, 1989. She did not return within an appropriate time, so her cousin George went to check on her. When he got there, her purse was on the ground and the phone was dangling. She was 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighed 110 pounds at the time. Prince Albert police believe foul play is involved. Ernestine's brother, Greg McKenzie, urges anyone with any information to come forward so his family could stop wondering where she is. I will link his video down below. Corrine Musoman. Corrine lived in Cochin near North Battleford and along the shores of Jackfish Lake. She was a member of the Saulteaux First Nation. She was last seen on November 15, 1986, and was walking on a grid road at about 4 a.m. Searches were conducted on foot, by snowmobile, horse, and by airplane. No trace of Corrine was ever found. She was last seen wearing blue jeans, a blue jean jacket, and tall brown boots. This is all the info I was able to find for Corrine. Lavina Tosher. Lavina was a 35-year-old mother to 3 children and was married to a man named Alan Tosher. RCMP received an anonymous call on December 12, 1991 that said Lavina was last seen at her home in Parkman on September 26, 1991, and that her disappearance seemed suspicious. Alan was immediately a suspect in Lavina's disappearance. The couple was known to drink and Alan would often hit Lavina. Her family said that she often spoke about leaving him but never did. Alan said that Lavina left the house with her purse, ID, and overnight bag, but her purse and ID were found at his house a year later after police were searching for drugs. There was no movement in the case until almost 2 years later, and by that time Alan had a new girlfriend named Helen Twigg. A man by the name of Roy Wiggins went to the RCMP and said that he would try to help by trying to get information from Alan about what happened to his wife Lavina. The RCMP admitted to giving him a little cash for his expenses, but say that he was never officially paid to be an informant. On June 26, 1994, Roy was found dead by multiple gunshot wounds. The next day, Alan and Lavina's son David were charged with Roy's murder. Alan and Lavina had another daughter named Sherry, and Alan and David went to her house. Sherry said that her dad and brother admitted to killing Roy because they found out he was working with the police. Alan said he will not go back to prison. Alan and his son David were very close, and Sherry said that David agreed to a suicide pact. They spent about an hour with her before going back home. Sherry knew this was the final goodbye and that she would never see them again. When the police showed up to arrest Alan and David, they barricaded themselves inside the house for about 33 hours. The police finally entered and found the pair dead in a back room by self-inflicted gunshot wounds. This was on July 1st, 1994. After their suicide, Alan's girlfriend Helen was charged with Roy's murder. She was acquitted by a jury of her peers 2 years later. Before his death, Roy Wiggins was able to get some information regarding Lavina's disappearance, but was never able to get the location of her body. She is still missing as of April 2022. Joyce Tillotson. Joyce was a 42-year-old mother of two and resided at 2204 Reynolds Street in Regina. She is described as being warm and gentle. She was a loving mother who loved her children very much, but she was known to drink a little too much at times. On November 14, 1993, Joyce had a party at her house. At about 3:30 a.m., some of her friends were leaving for a bit and she followed them outside. She had them drop her off a few blocks away from her house on the corner of Atkinson's and 13th Street. She said she was going to visit someone and get some money. Her friends returned about 30 minutes later and were surprised that she was not at home yet. In April 1994, Wascana Lake was searched for any signs of Joyce. This lake is located within the city of Regina. And sadly, 2 years after she disappeared, her son Charles also vanished and was found deceased. On November 22, 1995, he traveled back home to his home reserve of Carry the Kettle, which is northeast of Regina. He traveled back there with his girlfriend and arrived at a relative's home at about 4:30 p.m. He was drinking at the time and passed out, so they left him in the car. They checked on him at about 8:30 p.m. and he was gone. Relatives thought maybe he tried to hitchhike back to Regina. He was reported missing and a search party began for him. At times, the snow was waist deep. Snowmobilers found his body 3 kilometers south of the reserve. Charles never spoke of his mother in the 2 years she was missing until about 12 days before he went missing. He was wondering if he could talk to her and if she would hear him. No trace of Joyce has ever been found. Who was she going to see that night near Atkinson's and 13th Street? Patricia Fable. Patricia was called Patsy by her close family and friends. She was an 18-year-old mother to a baby boy named Cody at the time she went missing. Patsy grew up on the Kawakatus First Nation and spent some time in foster care growing up. She was close with her mom and son, who she loved more than anything in the world. Patsy moved to Regina after her older sister did and turned to survival sex and became addicted to prescription pills. This addiction costed her more than $100 a day. Her mother, Alice, would often care for Cody and would do so after she went missing. On September 30th, 1984, around 10:30 p.m., Patsy got into a red two-door Datsun sports car driven by an Asian man. She was on the corner of Osler Street and 12th Avenue. This location was popular with the working girls and was right down the street from the police station. Her brother, Gary Fable, was across the street and was keeping an eye on Patsy and the other girls working the street. There was a string of attacks on the working girls at the time, and most of them were scared. When the red car pulled up, she told her brother she knew the guy and would be right back. She flashed some money at her brother as the car drove away. She never came back. Her family tried to file a missing persons report right away, but was told they had to wait 3 days. In the meantime, her parents searched the alleys, streets, and garbage dumpsters for their daughter. The missing persons report was finally taken on October 2nd. Patsy has not been seen or heard from since that night in September 1984. She left behind a 1975 Camaro and her young son. Family says that she never would abandon him like that. She was 5 feet tall and weighed 100 pounds and just dyed her hair blonde a week before she went missing. Her mom was not sure if she dyed her hair to disguise herself or to make herself more appealing to her customers. She was wearing blue jeans, a white blouse, and gray boots when she was last seen. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please like and share this video. And if you knew any of the victims, please leave any memories of them in the comment section down below. And I hope to see you in the next video.